Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to remind Council and municipal staff that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. All Council meetings are also recorded. Recordings will be available to the public on the Township's YouTube account. Physical attendance of the public at this meeting is restricted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is held electronically under Bylaw 2020-70 to amend Procedural Bylaw 2018-117 pursuant to Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. As we gather today, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We have next the adoption of the agenda for Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. Sue, were there any additions to the agenda?
No, there were no additions. Just asking if we can hold the closed session at 1 p.m.
Okay, so the closed session will be a timed item at 1. Okay, the recommendation is that the Council and Committee meeting agenda for Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 be approved as presented. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. All those in favor? And that's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest this morning?
None.
Okay,
Yep,
I'm seeing none. Okay, we have none today. Today we have some delegations. Our first delegation is St. Francis Valley Healthcare Foundation and the Valley Manor. So we have Aaron Guino and Tricia Delorier with us regarding a check presentation. Now this is going to be fun because I don't actually have a check and I can't physically present it to you. However, Council is presenting and sending in the mail to you a check for $10,000 as part of our commitment to the redevelopment of Valley Manor. And we're very excited that the project is starting to get underway. And we really do appreciate all the work, Tricia and Aaron, that you do in our community to raise funds towards our healthcare hub in Barry's Bay. And so we're really pleased to have you here, even though it's virtual and even though I can't actually physically give you a check. It is coming. And so thank you very much. And Tricia, I'll turn it over to you to see if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Mayor Love. And I would like to thank all of the municipalities for all their dedication and this generous donation to our very important project of the redevelopment of Valley Manor. We very much appreciate the commitment and the dedication that you've given us to this project. I also would like to thank the foundation for forging through this with us to ensure that all of the donations are met and that this will assist us with this very important project. So thank you all very much again. Much appreciated.
Tricia, you're more than welcome. Aaron, did you want to add anything? Oh, I lost her. Aaron? Okay. I don't know if she can hear me. Anyways, no, thank you so much, Tricia. I know we're very excited. Maybe you could just give a quick update on where you're at, if you wouldn't mind, because it's exciting to see it start.
Absolutely. So right now we've completed all of the environmental testing and all of the approvals are in place for the demolition, which we've completed the okay, so the first part of the demolition has been completed, and that's the external abatement of the building, Sherwood Public School. Now they are in the process of demolishing the building, and that should be completed within the next week. And then once that is completed, we're going to be forging ahead with plans to submit our working drawings to the ministry. So, and then from there, it'll take about 2 years to as soon as the working drawings are approved, then it's going to take a couple of years for the building to be built. But it's definitely moving in a positive direction and things are starting to pick up quickly. So that's our update for Valley Manor right now.
Thank you, Tricia. It's very exciting to hear the project is getting started. I know council made this commitment, well, probably 3 years ago now, to provide $10,000 a year towards the project, and seeing it get off the ground and things start to happen really, does give us that sense of excitement in our community. Any member of council want to say anything at this point? No? Okay, we're all good. So thank you, Tricia. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day, and Aaron as well. And as I said, the check is in the mail, so you will get it shortly.
Excellent. Thank you very much to all. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, it's always nice when you can do something positive in the community. Our next delegation is Margie Krafchick and James Wilson, and I believe, Margie, you are the one who's going to speak for the delegation. And it's regarding speed limit on Highway 60 at Blueberry Point area. So I'll turn it over to you to speak to council.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Love and councillors. It's actually Highway 62. There was an error in the agenda. Further in the letter, it's Highway 62. Yes. So it is actually Highway 62. So just a brief little backdate. Obviously, the municipality is getting a lot busier. There's a lot more traffic. We've had property here for 75 years, and there are, on Blueberry Point and Krafchick Lane, there's 11 tax-paying properties. When we decided to move here 6 years ago, there was 1 full-time residence. Now there's 4 coming out of Blueberry Point. Like I said, we can all agree that there's an increase in traffic. And last March, my husband was hit from behind, coming from Cumbermere into Blueberry Point, just turning into there. Fortunately, there was no one coming the other way, or he would have had a head-on collision. Our car was severely damaged, and the other car was completely totaled. It was a truck, and the guardrails all had to be replaced. So I've waited now, sometimes just coming out of Blueberry Point Lane. Sometimes there's 11 to sometimes 15 cars now coming back and forth. And it's just really difficult. There's a blind corner coming off of where Kingdom Hall's driveway is. And that corner, the speed limit is 80 kilometers, and not many people are doing 80 kilometers along that road. So with new businesses coming along Highway 62, for example, Kelvin's has just opened. We just see a need that it's a little bit more dangerous, and people are driving a lot faster, and there's a lot more traffic. So we're just asking possibly to have a look at reducing the speed. Maybe 50% of people will, take that speed into consideration if they do, to hopefully avoid further accidents along that road. And also coming out of Blueberry Point now, we almost have to gun it, because if there's no traffic coming, when we do pull out, there's someone usually right on our rear end when I look in the rearview mirror. So I really appreciate your time and consideration for looking into this for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Margie. And you did do a submission that council has to go with your delegation. So we're aware that you're aware that it's County Road 62. Sorry about that. I just read the agenda item and didn't notice that. I knew what road it was in my mind. So it is County Road 62, but in order for the county to consider a reduction in speed limit, the local municipality has to make a request that it be reviewed. Correct. So what we have in front of us, council, is a recommendation in regards to that. And certainly there's no guarantee the review will end up in a recommendation to reduce the speed limit at the County of Renfrew, but perhaps a review is in order at this point in time, just to make sure that there has been due consideration for the changes that have occurred in Madawaska Valley since that speed limit was set a considerable amount of time ago.
Right.
So, Sue, would you read the recommendation, please?
Yes, through the chair. That council directs staff to request the County of Renfrew to evaluate the area south of Blueberry Point towards Ruby Road on Highway 62 to address safety issues and determine if a speed reduction is warranted.
Can I get a mover for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Is there any discussion from council or any questions for Margie on what she's presented? Councillor Poplinski.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I have no questions. I know it's a very dangerous stretch of road. She described the situation with her husband being hit from the rear. That's happened to me, and of course, a very significant amount of personal trauma because of it, and it could have been much more serious. That whole stretch of highway, I think, should be considered, and I would like to see it continue right over to the through the rock cut. And there are many hidden driveways in that stretch, and we would be, I think, doing a great service if we could suggest to the county that they would consider applying the reduced speed limit right through that area. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wilmer. Oh, you're muted. Councillor Wilmer, you're muted. Sorry.
Mute.
Sorry about that. Just a quick comment. I fully agree with reducing it to 60, or at least putting an application in to have it looked at. I think that stretch of road really could do with a reduction in speed. I think Councillor Poplinski has indicated some of the other things that are happening there. But the other thing too, and Margie writes about it in her letter, but it's the amount of wildlife too. For some reason, that's a crossing point, and I know I personally hit a deer on that stretch, and I think there are numerous reasons why it should be reduced, and I think just extending the 60 would be a good solution.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for Margie about her presentation, or any other comments or discussion from council on the recommendation? Okay, I'm not seeing any, then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to send that recommendation to the County of Renfrew, and we'll see what comes of their review of that piece of road.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. You take care.
You too.
Okay, our next delegation is Nicole Cook, and I don't know if Michael's with you or not, but welcome, Nicole, and you're here to speak. Oh, Michael, there's his arm. So Michael is here as well. You're here to speak to us about our noise bylaw. So Nicole, take it away. Oh, and you're muted as well. Everybody gets told they're muted on Zoom. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me today. Yes, I sent almost a month ago a letter in concern of the bylaw 2011-18, which is the noise bylaw. I don't know if everybody have a copy of what I sent. Basically, what happened and has been happening for years now. I live in Palmer Rapids. I've been living here for 12 years. Our neighbor, they have a party. Used to be only once a year. Now it seems to be 2-3 times a year. This year it was 3 nights straight with a live band blasting music until wee hours in the morning, past 1:00 a.m., which is right now the bylaw, which is ridiculous. Even though they've been approached by Mr. Quaid, because we talked to him many times, they just ignore the demands of turning down their music or following the bylaw. It is very frustrating and unrespectful for the people that live around. My husband and I, we went around, we talked to neighbors, just asking them if they heard the noise between the September 2nd to the 5th. People as far as 3K could hear the music. Not as loud as us because we're right next to them, but 3 kilometers, they can hear it. This is ridiculous. And this is a live band with a lot of people coming there. It needs to stop. I don't mind them having a party, but that loud, which one of you want to have a live band next door to them, play music till like 2:30 and plus in the morning? It has to stop. Even though they got warnings, I know Mr. Quaid talked to them on Friday morning or during the day. it started on a Thursday. They play until 2:30 a.m. on the Thursday, and they stop the music by then, but then there's the shouting and the screaming that keep going for another hour. Friday, even though they got a warning, the same thing happened that night. And Saturday, again, it happened that night. So I'm asking you to change the bylaw to 11 a.m. Sorry, 11 p.m. And increase the fee. I mean, obviously these people, they are always the same and they just don't care. They keep doing it over and over and over. And I'm sorry, having a live band where there's about 20 houses in the neighborhood here, and we don't need that. People got woken up. There's families moving in with young kids. They don't need that. My husband and I, we both retired. He suffered from PTSD. He served for 27 years, and he doesn't need to deal with that. This is ridiculous. They can have a gathering, that's fine with me, but a live band, I'm sorry, it is ridiculous. So this is why I'm bringing this up to you, because we've been living this for many years, and this year I'm sorry, it's the drop that overflowed my cup. So I'm asking you for your help. We have contacted many people to try to find out what we can do. We contacted you, Mayor Love. I talked to Mr. Quaid, who is the bylaw officer. I talked to the OPP, the sergeant in charge, and because my question was why the OPP, when we call them, why they don't show up, and I find out that they don't have a contract with the township. So unless it is under criminal code, they are not obligated to show up, which I think is another very silly situation. I feel that Mr. Quaid doesn't have the support that he needs. When we contacted him, like he said he's not going to show up there at 1 a.m. First, because of the time. Second, there were probably 100 people there, and it's people having a drink, having a big party, and doing what else, I don't know. There's big safety issue for him too, and I understand, and I'm wondering what you're going to do about it. And this should have been addressed directly on the first night. I don't understand why people cannot, your bylaw officer cannot contact the OPP and say, listen, I need your help. You need to come with me. Show up there like at midnight or at 1 a.m. because this is the curfew, if you want, for that bylaw right now, and say, turn down your music.
Turn it off, actually.
Yeah, or turn it off at 1 a.m. Nothing's happening. It needs to change, and it is very disappointed to that we're not able to find any help. But it needs to change. I got 12 names of people that agree that this has to be stopped. Something has to be done for that, because we cannot enjoy our peace and quiet. We live in the country to have peace and quiet. And I feel right now, when this happened, I might as well go at the Bluegrass Festival, because that's exactly what's happening. They're showing up, being loud, camping there with no proper facilities. We got people, excuse the expression, peeing on my apple trees.
There's dogs.
I got a dog coming in my coop, my rabbit hutch. They just don't give a hoot about anybody and about the bylaw. So my question is, are you willing to do something about that, and how?
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Does council have any questions for Nicole and, well, Mr. and Mrs. Cook? Do we have any questions for them or any comments? Councillor Poplinski.
Thank you, Mayor Love. And all I can say is that this cannot continue. This situation was just brought to my attention very recently. And I think we need to sit down with the OPP and define exactly what their responsibilities are. But I know one thing, we can't expect our lone municipal officer to appear there and deal with an unruly crowd. So what that suggests to me, that there's going to be many problems here. And a breach of the peace is one of them. And like I said, I'm not going to go into a great big discussion about my conversation with the staff sergeant at the OPP, but we want to know exactly where their duties. I understand they don't have a contract to enforce our bylaws, but if the bylaws are not being enforced, you're going to have major criminal activity and you're going to have many other disturbances of the peace. And therefore, that's why, like I said, I'm quite annoyed to hear that this has gone on this long. And it's no reflection on our building officer or our bylaw officer. I think he's doing the best he can. So you really got two issues. You got an issue of perhaps the time. That's one issue. But you can put any time you want. But if the laws are not going to be enforced, then the time really doesn't matter. So I think we need to look at the two issues. But in the meantime, I would suggest that we have a meeting with our sergeant at the OPP. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Poplinski. Any other member of council have a comment at this point? Okay, I noticed that Mr. Quaid is with us. Corwin, did you want to speak to this at all? I'm not sure if he can hear me, quite frankly. Oh, okay, here we go.
I did
Good
attend.
morning.
Good morning, Mayor Love. Just to say to you, I did show up at the scene on Friday night. I did try and find the organizers. They weren't available. Nobody tell me who the organizer was. So I did speak to somebody in the band and told them the bylaw was 1 o'clock in the morning. I gave them a warning. Saturday night, I went again. I took decibel readings both Friday night and Saturday night. And early in the evening by myself. OPP are not available. They won't listen to my ask. So that's nothing against the OPP, but I did attend both places. Both warnings were given. I couldn't find the organizer, so the property owner was eventually charged because he was warned also about the incident. So that's how it went. I had to go back to them, so I had to find somebody. So the property owner was charged with the disturbance.
Okay, thank you. Could you possibly answer for me, is there an ability for council to raise the fines or to make them sort of stackable so that first offense is this, second offense is a higher amount? Do we have an ability to do that, or is there a process that we could follow to do that?
There is a process to do that. We'd have to go to the province for approval. We can increase fines and have a stepping thing, but we do have like any enforcement or any kind of fines. First offense do have to go to the province for approval, but we can do that.
Okay, so that is something council could look at.
Yes.
Okay, so perhaps you could investigate that and bring that back to our attention. In regards to the time, Sue, could you maybe speak to why the time on the noise bylaw is 1 a.m.?
Sorry, just had to unmute there. Yes, so what I would suggest is right now it is 1 a.m. For considerations for all functions. So when you apply for a special occasion permit, it allows it to be up to 1 a.m. So changing the bylaw to 11 p.m. means that any function at any community hall, you would be restricting any local hotels or bars to also have to close at 11 p.m. So I would suggest that we have a lot of information and staff prepare a report on the impact of changing the noise bylaw. if you're wanting staff to consider 11 p.m. So, and I think the report should include the implication of such a change, that no community center, local restaurants or bars could operate past 11 p.m. And also we could speak to the consideration to raise the fine amounts and possibly look at other municipalities and the fine structures that they have to see if we are out of line and if possibly should be more. And also we could speak to the statement that the OPP do not have a contract with the municipality and seek clarification for council as to what does that mean. Because generally, anytime a group applies for a liquor license and or if they have a gathering, it is protocol that they, the OPP, the Renfrew County Public Health and AGCO are usually contacted. So we could include that in a report to council. And I think then you would have kind of the overall arching impact of considering to change, so that if you consider to change, you're aware of those three factors.
Okay, thank you. That would be very helpful, I think, and also a conversation with the OPP in regards to what kind of assistance our bylaw enforcement officer can get from them. Understanding that we are in the throes of transitioning. All municipalities are now transitioning to a police services board at the behest of the province. So we will become under a contract based on that police services board, but that hasn't happened just yet. We're just transitioning. So things are changing, and that will mean different things and different abilities to negotiate assistance from the OPP through that police services board. So please understand that things are changing, but it will take some time. So if staff could please prepare that report and come back to us with further information, I think that would be helpful, and possibly have a discussion with our staff sergeant as well to see what would be involved in ensuring that some assistance could be provided to back up our bylaw enforcement officer. I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you. We'll bring that back to council. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm speaking over someone.
No, go ahead.
I will bring that back to council. We'll work with Corey, and we'll speak to the OPP, and we'll bring a report back, and hopefully by then we'll also know possibly if there would be a change when there's a police board versus the format that we have now. Okay.
Okay, that would be great.
So the September council and committee meeting. Sorry.
No,
Wow,
no.
I'm going back a month. November.
Yes, please. If you can do September, you're really good. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Cook, we're going to look into what we can do and get some more information and see if we can't make some changes to assist in dealing with this situation.
I have another question, because when we contacted the office, we were told that they don't need a special permit to have a gathering like that. That was told by your office.
As it stands now.
You know, I understand that if we change the bylaw, it affect everything, but this is also a residential. I live up on Jewelville in Palmer Rapid. An event like that shouldn't be happening unless they have a special permit.
Which we don't have.
Which we don't have.
So the municipality doesn't provide permits for events. Sue, could you speak
Yes,
to that?
I just wanted to clarify for Mrs. Cook. So what I was referencing was generally when there are events, if there's outside venues, for example, if we do the CO Blitz, when we do events outside, when large groups are doing events that they're inviting and they'll be selling alcohol and that kind of event, when they have to make application, and that when they get the special occasion permit, then it's automatic that that letter goes to the OPP, Renfrew County Health. So this was not the same situation, but I was referencing some of the impact of changing that from 11 to 1. But I will add to the report your comment about the fact that we do not permit that. And maybe in our review, we can see if other municipalities do permit it. I can include that in that report.
Yes, so you were referring to special occasion permits. That's for correct. For alcohol specifically. Yes. And if you have a large gathering where you're providing alcohol, I do believe you still have to have a special occasions permit, but that's done through the LCBO and the Alcohol and Gaming Commission, right?
Yes,
Okay.
but to Mrs. Cook's point, so as we're calling the municipalities to get those comparisons to fines, we can also ask if they permit.
Yes, if the municipality also permits special events. Okay. Councillor Wilmer.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, did this event have a special occasion permit?
No, it was just a private gathering.
It's
They were
not
not
a
selling,
private-
they were not selling alcohol.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It is not.
Okay, so we clarified they didn't have a special occasion permit through alcohol and gaming because they weren't selling alcohol. They were just, it's an exceptionally large party, a gathering,
But it
private party.
It is
It's
not.
not private.
It's not a private party. It is on a private land. The people that does this is the paddlers co-op for 2 of the
Everybody,
night,
right.
and everybody knows that they have a big party happening the long weekend of September. It's been happening for years. I found out that the first night was a wedding that happened. Because it is open to everybody.
So it's not a private party.
To people I talk, they say, "Oh, everybody in Palmer Rapid were there." It's open to everyone. It's
Not a private party.
It is not.
Okay.
I don't consider that a private party. You know, that's why I'm
If I,
baffled.
Okay,
if
I
I
think-
may,
Yes,
if I
Sue.
may, Mayor Love, so we do hear what you would like us to address. So I think you've given us some good information, and I will include, like I said, in the review, what other municipalities are doing to address that specific area.
Okay, so we're looking into that. Our staff will come back to us with more information because we do need some more information and some clear understanding of some of the impacts. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention and expressing your concerns before council. We appreciate that. And I guess staff will get back to you once council's had a chance to review their findings and let you know if there's some change that we can make. All right, thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And that completes our delegations for today. At this point in the meeting, we're headed into standing committees. All recommendations from the standing committees are recommendations to council and are pending the approval of council at a subsequent meeting. And our first one is, let me see, just a sec. Operations, Roads and Waste Management, and I'm going to turn it over to Chair Bromwich to do his committee.
Thank you very much, Mayor Love. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Carl, you?
Oh, very well, thank you.
Good.
We have 2 items in operations. Item 6.1.1 and 6.1.2 is fairly simple. The first one that Mike's going to give us here is his Public Works update for September 2021. And when we're finished, both of them, I guess I can ask Sue if you'd read out the recommendations for us. Is that okay? Thanks, Mike. So would you update us on the Public Works report here? Thank you.
Absolutely, Carl.
Thank you.
So I'll start with the update here. I'll touch on some of the key points. Starting with Lakewoods, although things are moving so fast up there that this update's kind of behind the times already. But yeah, things are going good up there. The blasting is complete now. The rock fill, the culvert extension, granular A is being placed. The road's getting reshaped with the granular A. Things are flying fast, so that's good news. Good to see. What else? I'll touch on some more of the big ones. We had a water service leak on the main Alpiongo line. Had to hydrovac up, fix the shutoff valve, and required some repairs with the interlock on the boulevard. And also all of the Remembrance Day banners, well, all the ones we have been placed up, so I don't know if people have noticed that throughout the town. They look really good, so that's a nice thing for Remembrance Day. And everything else is pretty much the standard thing. If anybody has any questions, I'll get them to go ahead and ask.
Does anybody have any questions for our supervisor here? Sounds great to me, Mike, what's going on. When would you estimate Lakewoods be completed up there? Do you think we'll have it done before winter? Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. I think their timelines were the end of October to be paving, and if it keeps moving as quick as it does, I can't see them having a problem meeting that. So then there'll just be a few items left to tie up after the paving, the guardrails and whatnot. But if they keep going at this rate, I can't see there being a problem being done before the winter.
To you, Mayor Love.
Just a quick question, Mike, do you have any sense that we're on budget? Or especially since the blasting has been done, are we looking like we're coming in on target?
There has only been the one payment process so far, so it's hard to tell this early on, but there hasn't been any unforeseen things, so that's always a good sign. So I would say that yes, I would appear that we are moving along on the budget.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Good news. Very good news, Mike. Very, very well.
For sure.
Any further discussion on that item? Yes, to you, Ernie.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My question actually is in relation to the mentions here that the Pog Lake Road was completed. Is that including all of the deficiencies or changes which needed to be done after the work last year? Is that all now done according to the contract?
Yes, it is. I don't know how I missed that one, Ernie. Sorry, but yes, it is
Okay.
totally complete. The project is done and it's moving into the final payment stages. So yeah, all deficiencies were completed this spring and it's totally finished.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We move on to 6.1.2 then. Connecting link intake. Maybe just give us an overview of this. If Hillary isn't here, but maybe you could help us out here, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Hillary kind of gave me the.
Thank you.
Knew I'd be taking it from him, so he gave me the thing. I think the best way is if everyone goes to Perspective Engineering's thing. It's the page 3 of this report. So if we go down to the recommended rehabilitation, he's got the 3 key points of the things that we are hoping to accomplish here with this connecting link funding. So it's replacing the existing crosswalks, that's thermoplastic ones, to be replaced with a colored concrete to delineate the difference between the existing roadway and the crosswalk. So that'll take away that thermoplastic that just doesn't seem to hold up with those big trucks that are going through there now. So it'd be a big thing for us to not have to get those replaced on a yearly basis as well. They don't barely even make a year now. So that's the big item on this. And then obviously a lot safer having that delineation between the concrete and the asphalt. And then repaint lines and redo epoxy stop blocks. It's kind of a small thing. And then adjust and pour concrete around all the existing manholes within the traveled portion. So all the manhole lids to be reset on grade and then repoured around. So some of them have settled and whatnot. So that's the 3 big items we're going for with this funding. And I think that's about it. And he has in the financial impact. Of course, we're on the hook for the 10% if we are successful. And I think, Sue, are we going to read the recommendation?
Yes, I can through the chair, that the operations manager is directed to apply for the 2021-2022 connecting link funding intake as proposed.
Also move that. We have a seconder on that, please. And that's to you, Mark. And any further discussion on this? I just want to mention one thing, if I could. This idea of replacing the crosswalks with colored stone embedded right in the road instead of just painting it was Mike's idea, and I want to give him credit for that.
Colored concrete, not stone.
Well, yeah, it's colored concrete, but I just want to give you credit for coming up with that idea, and thank you, Mike. That was a brilliant one, because it cost a lot of money to have this stuff painted on. I think about $10,000 or $12,000 for the crosswalk painting, and it's gone within a year or 2 years. So, and I'll recognize your cat if you'd like, Mayor Love. To you, Mayor Love.
No, just, yeah, I didn't need to say anything. Just needed to get rid of the cat, actually.
To you, Sue.
Just a clarification point for council. Just wanted to ensure that council understands that when we apply for these connecting links, we do use the services of Jason Ward from Perspective Engineering to assist us with, adding those professional points that we need from the industry in our application to make it more successful.
And to you, Mark, if you wouldn't mind. And you're muted there again.
I'm just wondering, Mike, would the funding, I know it's connecting links, so it's it doesn't include Stafford Street, but would it be worth doing the one, or does it cover the crosswalk on Stafford Street too?
No, this is just on the Opeongo line, the connecting link itself for this funding. The Stafford Street one, it's a lot less traffic on Stafford Street. I think for the cost, it would kind of maybe wait and see what these come in at kind of thing, because it would have to be totally our own. And it seems to last a lot longer than the ones on the main link itself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. The first item, 6.1.1, we have a recommendation for that too. Could you read it for us, or do we have to pass it? To you, Sue.
I don't think we need a recommendation. It's just to
Okay.
accept the report. Thank
Thank you. That's the two items we discussed. Now pass it back to you then, Mary Love. Thank you.
Did we vote on the connecting link?
Oh, I didn't get the vote. I'm sorry. All in favor? And that's passed. Thank you. Now I can give it back to you, Mary Love. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair Bromwich. Our next item is operations, water and wastewater and facilities, and I'll turn it over to Chair Schulist.
Yes, to Madam Mayor. Yes, we have only got one item, and that is a pump failure, water pollution control plant. Is Ashley around by chance?
Yes, sir.
Or will it be Amanda, I guess? Oh, there's Ashley. Okay. Yeah, I think that the recommendation here to to refurbish the pump and that is probably the way to go. I don't see a problem, but I'd like to hear what you have to say on this one, because I know a new one is like 29,000 compared to 9,000. Plus, I'm reading here that we always need a backup. If we have one that is even refurbished, at least we've got some backup here, because this is very, very crucial. So, Ashley, if you don't mind filling us in on what you think.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schulist. Yes, in early September, we had one of the jet motive pumps go down. We did have a stock spare, and in-house electricians and mechanics were able to install it, no problem. However, as you see, the prices of these pumps are not really that cheap anymore. And the new one, or the one that will be repaired at approximately $9,000, is by the factory shop in Ottawa that provides all the flight service. It's warranted for an additional year or 18 months. And yeah, the replacement cost of that pump right now is $29,000 plus 6 to 8 weeks delivery on it. Yeah, so we're not completely stuck right now. We just had 30 days to approve the repair cost before they just shipped it back to us in a box. So that's where we stood. Amanda was able to agree with me, and it was so we went ahead and we're getting the repairs completed as of now.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Any council member see any problem with the step to be taken? I don't see any right at this moment. Oh, Madam CEO, you have a question?
Yes, just a comment in the absence of the treasurer. She's on holidays this week. She did add in the report to council that this was an unforeseen expense and will add to the wastewater services budget for expenditures at year end. At which time, should revenues not surpass forecasted expectations, transfers from surplus or reserves will be required to balance the budget.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, there is a recommendation here. Maybe, Madam CEO, you could read it out.
Yes, through the chair, that the pump failure water pollution control plant WPCP report is accepted as information.
Okay, so there's really no action really required here. It's just telling us this here, and But shouldn't we be telling staff that council is okay with this? With
Well,
approving
I
this,
would
or
like,
no?
I would like council to entertain that we include that should revenues not surpass forecasted expectations, transfers from surplus or reserves will be required to balance the budget.
So we would need a mover on that one, right?
Yes, please.
Or yes, okay. I'll move it. I'd like to get a seconder. Councillor Brumwich. Now, is there any further discussions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. There is no correspondence or information. Yes, Madam CEO, maybe there is.
No, there's no correspondence, but before Mr. Pilgrim leaves the meeting, I think it's worthy of us possibly trying to bring you a little bit of an update as to where CGIS is at. If you recall at the last meeting, there was a presentation regarding the digitization of our water and wastewater maps. It has expanded, I think, to exceed our expectations. And maybe Ashley can assist me in bringing you some of the changes. One of them being, and I asked for Ashley's assistance because I don't fully understand it. But I do believe that we've added a layer, which is the topography, which will assist when we're looking at future sites to have pumping stations. It states the elevation, the areas where possibly it would be more difficult and more challenging to have the wastewater pumping up. Correct, Ashley? And also, I believe that we are in the process of adding the size of the piping in some of those locations. So I know, Ashley, I've seen a lot of emails going back and forth between Nick from Ontario Clean Water and Jeff Dean from CGIS. So I wasn't sure if maybe you wanted to bring council an update.
Okay, well, after a recent meeting we had looking at a property in the vicinity that I found it would look much more beneficial in looking at different areas if we were able to overlay the property parcels as well. So then we can encompass everything within the town and, okay, this potential, this one has potential, all these have potential for growth down the road, or like a yes, no, or are these even feasible to work on. So we're still working on it, but it's coming around, and I think in a couple of weeks it's going to be pretty good. It's going to work well.
Yeah, so Ashley, you find is very beneficial. So that's what I'm sensing what you're saying, and this is good news, because anytime we can have any kind of tool like this here to help us, it definitely will help in the future and making decisions, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions for Ashley on this here? I see Madam CEO got her hand up.
Not a question, just an update for council. We're hoping that for the council and committee meeting in November, that we should be at what we deem to be like the final look of what our digitized mapping will look like. We did do a test to see if a third party could access that information if we had to send, for example, what the topography of a certain area was. And through going through CGIS's server, it worked very well. So that would be another benefit when we're dealing with developers that are looking at expanding certain areas within the town as well. So we will aim for the council and committee meeting, water wastewater portion of that meeting, to possibly have another demonstration for council.
Thank you very much, Madam CEO. Anybody else? I see no one else. 7.3 is unfinished business. I don't think there's any unfinished business. So I will now hand the gavel over to Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Schulist. And our next committee is Fire and Protection and Emergency Management, and I'll turn it over to Chair Poplinski. And you're muted, sorry.
How was that?
That's good.
Thank you, Mayor Love. In pages 25 to 32 in your package, we have items 8.11, fire calls and bylaw calls for service breakdown. And I think we have Chief Quaid with us today. So Chief, if you could enlighten us on the report.
Okay, the first one is the fire call breakdown. And to date, we've had 46 calls for service. That's probably between 15 and 20 calls below average for this time of the year since I've started. So that's a good thing. People have been very cautious, very good to deal with. So that probably goes with the fire prevention also, but the public's been great to deal with so far this year. They've taken it very cautiously and hopefully it keeps going this way. The one thing they did have is I've had to respond to 32 campfires burning without a permit, and then fires within the village of Barry's Bay and the hamlet Cumberland limits. That's under the open air burning bylaws. You're not allowed. These are a lot of neighbor disputes that I've had to respond to. So warning's been issued at every one of these incidents. People in good, most people who moved in didn't realize this is what was going on. Same with short-term rentals. They didn't realize they were allowed to have a campfire. So they're just giving verbal warning. People would do good about it. Then it comes to the bylaws breakdown. Biggest thing was the noise bylaws. That's again with the short-term rentals. One was the complaint was up in Jewelville. I dealt with that. Like I said, I was up there twice, took decibel readings. That was the biggest complaint, but there've been about 4 other places that we've had similar issues. Short-term rental people don't realize the noise bylaw. So I explained it to them. They've never really violated it. They haven't went past 1 o'clock, but some of the neighbors who are used to permanent residents living there, it gets kind of hard for them to adjust to the short-term people moving in and out. But for the most part, people have been decent about it. Nobody's really giving too hard a time. A few people made a few comments, but that's understandable. That's usually their owners. The sea containers again. There are 3 sea containers were discovered again in the last month of September. 2 illegal trailers on properties, and we've again discovered 4 sleep cabins. But we have compliance officers closer and closer to being in place, so that'll help with the assistance on that part of the job.
Yes, Mayor Love.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In regards to the 32 complaints about campfires and brush burning, you mentioned that in many cases it's new residents or people who have moved into the area, so they're unaware of the rules pretty much. I'm wondering if we could do some public education around some of those basic rules to ensure that the public get some sense of what the rules are, and it might then reduce some of the number of complaints that you do have to attend. I'm looking at possibly next spring or early summer to do that education, just so people are aware when and where they can and can't burn brush or have campfires. I think it would be a good idea.
Yes, Gwen's already suggested that, so we're working on a package so our new residents come in when they pick up their blue bins and their green bins and everything. That goes with them, so they explain the bylaws and the rules in the area, so it does help. Yeah, we are working on that.
That's fantastic. That's a great idea, and possibly also a little bit of advertising in the local newspaper around the time when you start to see an uptick in complaints, just so people can see that this is not what's not allowed within the village limits or within the hamlet limits. But no, the package idea is a fantastic one because it certainly covers the village. I'm just also thinking of the hamlet of Cumbermere where they wouldn't be coming in for that. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I'm just going to ask the chief if you mentioned the short-term rentals and the issues there with the calls that you're getting, and the idea of putting information out in the public and so on is very helpful. But how do we deal with the short-term rentals? Any suggestions there?
What I'm hoping to do is I want to do if I locate the short-term rentals. Right now, what I'm doing is sending the noise bylaw and the open air burning bylaw to the owner and asking them to post it in their building and also have a copy for themselves. So maybe it does come in there, they understand it. I explain that to the renters that they are going to understand the rules when they're there to post inside each residence. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I've mailed out to the 5 places that have had issues, have been issued the open air burning bylaw and the noise bylaw, and they both acknowledged, or all 5 people have acknowledged that they had it and didn't realize what was going on, and they will tell their tenants.
Chief, do we have any sense of understanding how many of these short-term rentals we may have in our township?
No, but it seems to be increasing all over from what you hear residents in the area, different areas. Permanent residents will tell you this place has gone from a permanent resident to short-term rental. It increased quite a bit. I honestly don't know how many's out there That will be part of my risk assessment for the fire.
Okay.
Master fire plan, we do get it, but that's part of it. So once I get that discovered, you will have those numbers.
So you'll be able to isolate those numbers then in terms of looking at issues moving forward.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Yes, Mayor Love?
Just in relation to that, Chair, we hadn't, as a municipality, moved forward with any sort of controls on short-term rental accommodations, because our most recent experience of a municipality that would have been Prince Edward County, and having attended a session they did at Ontario East Municipal Conference a couple of years ago, it was a fairly complicated and very expensive process to engage in sort of licensing and addressing these issues in a structured form. However, the reason I was just reaching to the side and trying to grab my bits of paper is I was at the recent Roma board meeting. This subject also came up. It is a common concern for small rural municipalities anywhere where there's any sort of cottage country. And I did hear that Blue Mountains has bylaws for short-term rentals, and North Bruce Peninsula. And so I would suggest that, while I wouldn't say we should definitely commit to do this right at this very moment, it's a good opportunity to check out what some other rural municipalities have done. It may not be quite as comprehensive as the approach that Prince Edward County took, but there may be some things that can be done to begin to address the problem. So if we could maybe just have staff check into Blue Mountains and North Bruce Peninsula. And I do have a web address for North Bruce Peninsula that I can pass on to staff, and then possibly bring that back to us in the new year so that we can look at what the possibilities may be and where other municipalities have got with this, because there's no point in inventing a new wheel if someone's done a lot of this groundwork. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Love. Any further comments on that by council or staff? No, I think we're heading in the right direction. I think we do need to address it. Before it becomes a major issue. We encourage business. However, at the same time, we have to have some control and protect the people that are here and so on. So any further comments on that, Chief Quaid?
No, Chair Poplinski.
Okay, well, we could move on then with your report.
Okay, we're at, where am I? Oh, there's a bylaw, summary of the season of bylaw complaints. Noise complaints, I just broke down kind of, I mentioned 32 fire calls. July, we only had 1 noise complaint. August, we had 4 noise complaints. In September is when we got the majority of noise complaints for the long weekend in September. That was where the majority come in that 4-day span. Like I said, they were dealt with. I attended every one of them. And most of it was a misunderstanding between the neighbors, like used to permanent residents and short-term rentals. The short-term rentals, the people I did speak to were quite compliant. They're decent to deal with. They're apologetic, and they did tone things down after just sort of having a conversation with, warning, just a conversation with them. So they're pretty good about that. That's pretty much the report there.
Do we have any comments or questions by any members of council or staff? Seeing none, we can then perhaps move on to the next item on business. Of course, is we have recommendations. Do you want to deal with them at the end, Madam CAO?
I think the 2 recommendations under 8.1.1 and 8.1.2 are just accepting the report. So I think we're okay with that recommendation for that one.
Okay. Thank you. And dealing with the 8.13.
Okay, it's fire department activities. First was the maintenance and repairs. The South Hall tanker, there's brought to my attention there was an issue with the truck. They thought maybe it wasn't pumping properly. It wasn't up to snuff. They thought maybe the pump was failing. So I called Battle Shield Industries, who does all of our pump testing. They fixed the exhaust. It comes off the portable pump on the truck. it did crack at the manifold, so there was leaking. There was stones built up, and the intake pipes, so they cleaned the pipe out. They changed the filters on both the fuel and the oil filter on the motor, so the truck's running right. It's pumping at 300 gallons a minute, and there's nothing wrong with the pump itself. It was maintained for the last year or so over the use of it. It is now working properly. The 2007 pumper, which is our main pumper for the North Hall at the moment, had the backup air compressor failed for the first time. We replaced the charger earlier in the year, so that's been replaced and fixed. It's working proper. On September 22nd, the North Hall deputy and myself went to Brantford to look at our new pumper truck, do the final inspection, make sure everything's in place, everything's good. The truck is well built. The company's did an excellent job building it. I know if that was great to work with, so was Carrier. The truck will be delivered tomorrow morning between 11 and 12 to the North Hall. So we're hoping we'll go ahead and get it loaded tomorrow, put it right into service immediately. And I believe Gwen is working on a photo op for around 1 o'clock if council is able to attend with the local media outlets. And the truck will be in service as of tomorrow afternoon. Fire Prevention Week began on October 3rd, goes to October 9th. I visited George Vanier School for my first presentation yesterday morning. We will be conducting fire alarm checks. Myself and Darcy Sheehan later on in the week. We will be visiting the high school on Thursday, and also St. John Bosco will be visited also for their fire alarms, and a quick presentation to the students about the Fire Prevention Week so to make sure everybody has smoke alarms in their house and carbon monoxide alarms, and then know the difference between the two sounds. Wildfire season ends October 31st, which the signs will be then moved back to green, which means no permits will be required till April 1st. Burning's allowed anytime during the day or night at that point. We've gone ahead and responded to 2 wildfires this season, which is early on in the season. The first one was because a power line was down. It burned about 1/4 of an acre of property. The second wasn't sure why exactly started. I think maybe just scared of the ashes or maybe a cigarette, but it was an accidental fire. It burnt only made the size of a house, a little wee tiny spot. We got it out fairly quickly. The rest of the summer's been pretty good. Everybody else has been during the fire ban. We had no issues whatsoever. The public's been great. Emergency management. Gwen and I have sat down and discussed the date. So it'll be October 28th at 10 a.m. for a tabletop exercise. We're working on a scenario. Gwen and I will contact the stakeholders to have them available. See who wants to attend in it. We're still working on the scenario for the starting at 12:15 as of today. The fall capital sector meeting for emergency management will be online for Gwen and I if we're available, depending on the council meeting. One of us will go back and forth in between the meeting and get our information and hear any updates from our field officer at that point in time. And I am currently working on the municipal compliance information for 2021. We've been compliant since I started in 2016. I have no issues with us being compliant this year. So it should be done by the 1st of December and handed in early.
You're muted, Councillor Poplinski.
Okay, any comments or questions from staff or council? Seeing none, there's a recommendation that the fire department activities report be received as information. And we can move on to 8.14, and it's dealing with the surplus equipment chief. You'd like to deal with that report?
Okay, over the last couple of years, we've upgraded a lot of our equipment. So with doing that, we've ended up with a lot of equipment we don't longer need or use. So I'm asking to need a surplus. We have 28 MSA aluminum air bottles, 15 aluminum Scott air bottles, 4 mobile radios that came out of trucks that were replaced and upgraded digital. We have the diesel generator outside the municipal office. We also have the 1989 pumper truck to be deemed a surplus. So I'm asking council to deem this a surplus and have it tendered out to be sold, and the money go back into the accounts of each department. That's where it belongs to offset the costs. And the small generator that is the Cumbermere Community Center right now to use as a backup will be given to the roads department for their use and repurposed for them guys.
Okay, any comments or questions from anyone? Yes, Mayor Love?
I'm sorry, Chair, it's not on the surplus, but the chief just mentioned the generator for the Cumbermere Hall and the South Fire Hall. And I just wondered if he could give us just a quick update on where we're at with that project.
The generators are ordered. They're supposed to hopefully pick them up next week from Toronto. So within the next week or two, they will start both projects and hopefully have them done for the 1st of November. If not, be the first week of November, it will be completed at the latest. I just spoke to them yesterday.
Okay.
That's
Thank you.
fantastic.
That's good news. Comforting to know. So if there are no questions or comments, further comments, there's a recommendation the council deem the 28 MSA aluminum air bottles, 15 Scott aluminum air bottles, 4 Motorola mobile radios, 1 diesel generator, municipal office, and the 1989 pumper truck as surplus. And that council directs staff to proceed with the sale of surplus items. And I guess we need a resolution on that. So can I have somebody move to accept that recommendation? Yes, Mayor Love. And second by Councillor Schulist. Any further comments? All in favor? Motion is passed. Thank you. We have 8.2 correspondence and 8.21, and it's the OPP 2022 annual billing statement. And you have it all in your package there. And are there any questions or comments from council staff? Yes, Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to bring some points to council's attention in regards to the change that's occurred between 2021 and 2022. So just to note, our base service cost has gone down. It was $177.48, and in 2022, it's anticipated to be $172.07. Our calls for service amount has gone down from $76.62 per household to $74.82. And one of the key drivers of that is the number of calls for service. So the number of calls for service was significantly lower in 2020. It went from 661 in 2019 down to 534. And the way they determine our calls for service for the coming year is based on a 4-year running average. So this significant drop has reduced the amount that we're seeing in what they're asking for calls for service. We may find that that doesn't hold true, in which case we should be prepared in case we do end up with a makeup bill at the end of the year for 2022. So it's just, we're seeing a significant drop overall. Our total bill in 2021 was $919,816. And now we're looking at 2022 at $892,689. So that's a $27,000 drop. I mean, this is good to see, but we should be mindful that there was that significant drop in calls for service, and it may not continue as the world gets back to being mobile and and busy, which is, what we're seeing now. So I just wanted to point those key things out, just so council was aware. It's good to see the bill going down, but I just don't trust that it's going to stay there. So we'll see what happens at the end of 2022.
Thank you for the comments, Mayor Love. And I was just going to comment further that once we realize the financial impact of the new police boards and the fact that we have to pick up the costs for the additional members, so that's going to certainly drive up the costs as well. So we just have to keep that in mind moving forward. I see, Madam CAO, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I was just going to comment on what Mayor Love just said, and did council want me to maybe put a placeholder in our budget sheets for consideration that possibly we set aside that $27,000 in a reserve until we know what the impact, that you budget accordingly for that difference. It's not an increase from what you were paying, and that possibly we set that aside until we do know, to Councillor Poplinski's point, what that police board impact would be. Then you're not going back to the taxpayer after.
No, I believe that would be well received, that information. I think that's exactly what we should do with it. So a very good point.
I will put that action item to the treasurer so
Okay.
she's aware. Okay.
Mayor Love, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to support you, Chair, in that thought, because while it's nice to see the bill go down, as I say, we really don't know what's going to happen in terms of the Police Services Board and additional costs. So fantastic idea.
Yeah, I think there were several things happen with their calls for service. Of course, you had most people like groundhogs during the COVID. And however, there were certain things that I noticed were spiked because of then some of the incidents that happened with people being in close quarters and so on. So I think they had more calls for service and in some areas, but I think we will probably get back to a more of a normal. And I think you do have to look at it in terms of a 4-year period as opposed to one-off and so on. So I think it's wise to set that money aside. Any further comments on that report from council or staff? Okay, I don't see any. So I think if anyone's got any questions about the billing itself, bring it to my attention, or we'll to the CAO, and then we can deal with concerns that you may have. We've got 8.2 I'm sorry, 8.3, the unfinished business section. Is there anything, Madam CAO, that we haven't dealt with?
Yes, I wanted to just bring you an update following the report on bylaw. So having the municipal compliance officer in place will assist in helping to identify with some of the aforementioned issues in the bylaw reports, as well as assist with bylaw reviews as well. There is a final meeting scheduled next week to finalize the hire of a candidate for the municipal compliance officer. It's a candidate with 30 years. He's a retired OPP. Comes with no training required as it pertains to being able to issue fines and prepare documents so that they are ready for prosecution and do the reviews. And that would be and he would be then available to start the week of October 20th. Both parties of the from Killu Haggerty Richards and the municipality from the building and bylaw department have agreed that all costs associated with this position will be shared as it pertains to the cost of a phone, for example, and the advertising to date. I would ask that council approve the following resolution, that we may have the contract ready for signing at the regular council meeting October 16th, so that we don't lose any time for the implementation of this position. And the resolution would be, if I may, Mr. Chair, can I read a resolution
Yes,
for
please.
consideration? That council directs staff to proceed drafting the contract agreement between Madawaska Valley and Killu Haggerty and Richards for the hire of a compliance officer that will be shared between the two municipalities, and that this position would be at Group 5, Step 5, as recommended by the bylaw and building staff on the interviewing committee.
Okay, thank you, Madam CAO. If that concludes the, unless there's some comments or questions, that concludes my portion of the meeting.
If I may get a mover and a seconder to that, it
Okay,
would allow
yes,
staff
sorry.
to proceed. No, that's
Yes,
okay.
so I need someone to move. I see Councillor Schulist and Councillor Wilmer. Any further comments? All in favor? Motion's granted.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll pass the gavel back to the mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair Paflinski. Our next committee is Recreation and Community Development, and I will pass this to Chair Wilmer. Sorry, I fumbled your name. I apologize.
You did, and I apologize. I have a noisy dog.
It's okay.
May interrupt. Okay, the Recreation and Community Development, we have 3 municipal reports, 9.1.1, 9.1.2, and 9.1.3. We'll start with the first one, which is Renfrew County ATV and Paul J. Akbassi Community Center updates. And Sue, you have written this report. I was just wondering if you could go through it with us.
Yes, so I'm not sure if council has any questions on what I've prepared. I'll start with the first order, which is the Paul J. Akbassi Community Center update. If you recall, at the last meeting, council asked that staff bring back the question whether or not we should be allowing rentals the spring, summer, and fall of 2022, and or if we felt that we would be prepared to proceed with tendering and the replacement of that floor in 2022. So basically, the council needs to decide if they will be proceeding with tendering for the rehabilitation of the ice surface winter of 2022, which would be April 2022 when I reference that. The grant submissions would have to be out no later than January 2022, with the execution of the works from April to September. At this point, there's a $100,000 grant that we have received and confirmed to go against a dehumidifier that needs to be spent by December 2023. At this point, approval to proceed and give staff direction to not do any rentals would require the cost of the project to be debentured. If you recall, it was quite a few months ago, there had been a debenturing formula in different options to debenturing that was presented by the treasurer. The costs include retaining an engineering firm to submit the application and would oversee the project. Considerations for discussion should include the impact of the upcoming municipal election. As CEO clerk, I would be remiss to not highlight that this project, depending on the timelines, may be impacted by upcoming municipal election thresholds. Nominations for the 2022 municipal election opens May 2nd, 2022. The Ontario Municipal Act states that if I have less than 75% of incumbent councillors seeking re-election, the council is restricted from passing bylaws that allocate spending more than $50,000 or creates a liability for the municipal corporation greater than $50,000. If you recall, there are delegation authorities that can be granted to allow the spending of items that were budgeted. Having said that, for MV Township, the impact means that in my 5-member council, if fewer than 3 members of council seek re-election, council becomes lame duck on August 19, 2022. The last scheduled council meeting before the potential lame duck period for MV would be August 16th, 2022. So I'm not suggesting that you hold off the project. I'm just suggesting that it being an election year, wanted consideration to be given to the impact of those dates. I'm not sure if you have any questions.
Sue, I think that's good information to know, and I think it's important to remember that. My concern, though, is that we pushed this back another year, and I think we're in a situation where it's getting to the point where that it's critical that this work has to be done. So I think it's good to understand that we have the timelines of the upcoming election that may pose a little bit of a concern, but I think for me anyway, to have good conscience moving forward into another season, I think the question, which we've already talked about, is more of whether we have an arena or not, because I don't want the municipality to be running an arena that is not safe for the employees or not safe for the public. And I think if we get on with the work, we can ensure that our arena lives on for another 40 years. So I think we should be looking at moving on it by January 2022. That way the work will be finished before the election. I know it may make some things difficult with bill paying, etc., if we had a lame duck council. Just my thoughts. Does anyone else, any comments? Councillor Schulis.
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely agree with you. I think we have to take some actions. We've already postponed all this stuff here for 1 year. We're gambling this year that everything is going to be good for the hockey season and figure skating and so on and activities. So I think we have to be proactive on this. I really think that we should move forward. And, you know, I know those dates are coming up, but I think this council should be making those firm commitments to this project. Thank you very much.
Right, are there any other comments? Councillor Babowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. a couple of questions. I've got one and directed perhaps to the CAO. And are you aware of any possible grants that the $100,000 grant for the dehumidifier does not qualify for the surface? We're talking at $1 million plus. And I was hoping that we would have had more discussion about some of the issues we raised. About one of them, of course, was selling some of the surplus land, looking at cutting our expenses, and of course the possibility of having some more involvement from the community and fundraisers and so on. I understand because of the COVID, a lot of that never happened. But I'm just not prepared to jump in and borrow $1 million and stick it to the taxpayers. I'm just not prepared. And unless we address some of the other areas of being able to assist in the project. I am not denying that we don't need to do this, but I just feel that we have to have a plan and get the community involved, and let's move forward with it. But just I'm not in favor of just going out and borrowing the money.
Sue?
Yes, so to that point, it would be more than $1 million. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if I recall, just doing the floor part was, I want to say 1.3 pre-COVID. So I'm assuming would be more on the 1.5 at this point. And I'm not sure about availability. I did reach out to Simcoe last night because you know, as staff, we don't have that expertise to be able to firmly say to council, yes, you have 1 more year. Yes, you have 5 more years. So if I may, with the chair indulgence, I will read what was said. So it said, if you choose to wait until 2023 to complete the floor and you have another leak, it would be wise to schedule to budget $15,000 as the cost for emergency leak repair would be approximately $15,000. If for some reason a potential leak is too large for rink seal, then you do have another option to cut up the floor and source the leak that way. It is risky as leaks migrate. We can hit other pipes. It is costly and labor intensive. You may be fine and the floor could last until 2023. You have had multiple leaks in the floor repaired over the last 5 years, so it is ready to be replaced. Conclusion, if council decides to wait, then all you can do is continue to monitor your expansion tanks during your routine plant checks and write it out. When the time comes to replace it, we would be glad to assist with the process to ensure you give yourself enough time to tender. The most common mistake towns have with these projects is they tender late and jeopardize the construction schedule and delay the startup for the following year.
Thank you. Well, that's good information to have. I guess I just want to make a comment on Councillor Poplinski's comments. I agree with him on the fact that we did ask for information. We will be having a meeting next week, I understand, on surplus properties. But I think this process has to start moving. And we did talk about fundraising. So I think it's time we have to get at it. And if we're going to use some of these other ways to fund it, we have to start doing it now. And we have to get the information together and we have to prepare ourselves so that we can proceed. You know, one way or another, we have to commit one way to it or decide we're not doing it and make that decision for good. But my feeling is we've got to do it. I'm concerned about the safety aspects of it. And I do agree, though, that yes, it's 1.5 million is a lot to debenture, and we should be looking at other ways. And we have talked about this in the past of, as I said, using property, using fundraising. But one way or another, we have to start moving on this. Okay, Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair. If Council recalls, when we were having the in-depth discussions about how to finance this, our treasurer was discovered that we would be able to do, and I can't remember what it was called, but a process where we are borrowing the money, but we're not locked into a debenture for a short number of years. And I think it was something like up to 5 years. And this I think is a good way to approach this and ensure that the project gets done, because I don't think any of us want to see this municipality have an arena that can't make ice. Kind of makes it a giant white elephant. It's completely useless. So we want to ensure that our community has the ability to use our arena. We want to make sure the ice can be made. But this may be the very thing that helps to ensure that there is time for the community and for the council, and this council and the next council, because it's going to take a few years, to go through the process of surplusing any land that we can surplus, and the process of selling that land, to engage the community in fundraising towards the project, and to do everything we can to limit how much we end up having to debenture. So we have this possibility in front of us as a way of approaching the project, ensuring we can provide an arena that functions, but at the same time, we have a window of opportunity to ensure we're not debenturing as much money. And basically, I think that is an approach that we really should seriously consider. It allows for what Councillor Poplinski has said, and what we're all, and Councillor Schulist has said about, let's look at those properties, let's see how we can turn them into value for our community through funding our arena, and at the same time for our community to step up and help fundraise, which is going to be challenging. There's no doubt about it. There are many groups fundraising across this community. Yeah. So this is a way we could approach it. I think it's a very valid way. If we're going to do that, we need to get on this right away. Our CAO is asking for a firm decision on whether or not to rent in 2022. If we're going to go ahead and do the repair, then we can't rent in 2022. We've got to do the repair and get it done. But let's have our treasurer come back in November and report to us on what it looks like to actually accept that approach, where we are taking that, and I can't remember what it was called, but that time, that number of years where we're not locked in. We've borrowed the money, we're making payments, but we're not locked into debenture, which is that opportunity for our community to get that loan amount down, that debenture down, and get us on a more reasonable path. And let's have a report back on what it would mean in terms of loan payments and what those impacts would be on our budget. Is that something that we could do in terms of making that final decision to go forward? Because we need to make this decision ASAP if we're going to get this tender out. However, I think we can't delay much longer on a decision of whether or not to rent, can we, Sue?
No, like we're losing, like every day they're going to Pembroke to rent because they needed the decision at the last council meeting or the council meeting before. And we keep pushing it down the line. And even in your statement, and I agree, we need to move forward and have the treasurer come back with a debenturing. As staff, I really don't feel that I have, really council buy-in as to what it is that they're agreeing to. Is it just, we're just replacing the floor and that's it? And if so, we have to commit to the cost. I'd have to go to an RFP for an engineering firm to prepare those documents, and that could be a few months as well. And if council, if the cost comes in higher than the 1.5, then truly the debenturing that we're doing is just a sample of how we would do it. Is that what we're doing? Is just the formula is what we're bringing back as to what it would look like, but really don't have, because I don't know what has changed.
Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chair, just comment further on the CAO's comments. And I think what was the point that was raised by the treasurer, I think, was a very good one, because what she outlined was a working loan, actually, before you get into the, and so then we could do a lot of it with the working loan and with subsidizing it with community events and so on. So then we're not borrowing $1.5 million. That's the whole point of it. So I look forward to getting more information on that. But in the meantime, I really think that we should have some sort of a working committee or a ad hoc committee involving the BIA, the business people, the whole gamut across the township. Get everybody to buy into this and get something working on that. There's a lot I think they could do in the background before the November meeting, perhaps, and give us a much better then start when we really, I really think the whole project's got to get done. That's my feeling. And instead of just piecemeal. However, we can start off with using one of the workable loans at a low interest rate, and then we're not tied in for another 20 years. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
I agree with that. I think, though, I'm hearing it sounds that everyone agrees with trying to find a way to make sure this project goes and to make this project happen. So as to Sue's issue with the renting, my suggestion would be that we say no more rentals for that period in 2022, because we have to, if we're saying we're going to try to find a way to do this, whether we're successful or not, we have to let Sue know that that's what we want to do. Therefore, we won't be doing rentals this year. So I think we need to agree to that anyway today. And then I like your idea of the committee, Councillor Poplinski. I think, you know, to get fundraising going and to get buy-in, it's a good way of doing it. But going back, I think the arena is desperately in need of repair. And as far as what we're actually doing, I thought we sort of had gone through all of this and agreed to a package that was about 1.5, and it included the dehumidifiers, et cetera, which we did get the grant for. So that's sort of my assumption, that we're still looking at that, and we have an engineer's report, I believe, on that sort of that with a lot of information that was completed in the spring, I believe. So we do have a fair amount of information, and I think that 1.5 really covered the minimal of what was needed, because there are items other than the floor that have to be completed at the same time. Any other? Councillor Schulis.
Yeah, yes, I am through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I really happy to hear what is happening here at this table. I think there's a consensus that we need to move forward. You know, having said that, there's not going to be no rentals. That's the first step. The one thing we also need to engage, of course, like Councillor Poplinski said, the public and the businesses and so on. And so I think then we're all on this as a partnership. And the one thing about anytime that you want to get any kind of grant money, may it be federal or provincial, you need to tell them that you're serious. And when you're going to make that commitment, they're gonna then all of a sudden then this money could be available. But if you're not making that commitment, that step cannot be taken. And as far as the surplus land, that shows that we're in partnership with any grant that we get, because they're not going to give us all the money for the whole project. We have to show that we are also part of this whole project. So I think we really need to get this ball rolling. So tell council, we need to know what's the next step. If it's going to be saying no more rentals, that's number one. Make a commitment. Either we do it or not, because this is where we're at. I think we had some really good discussion, and maybe some of the discussions are kind of at the end. I think action is needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Schulis. So Sue, what do we need to do to move forward here? I think we need a resolution about the rental status. Sue?
I already have a resolution from council from early on, probably about 4 months ago, that when we were planning on moving forward with the engineering reports that had been presented, that we were committed to not renting. We have received more inquiries since it appeared that we were not sure if we were proceeding. So I already have a resolution saying we will not rent the spring, summer, and fall. This was to come back to the table to see, are we committed to the replacement of the ice surface? Wanting to give council the information that there could be impact because of the municipal election in the event that that was something we had not considered. In order to proceed, basically what I need is a council resolution, and I can read if something as to what I think I'm looking for, and council can discuss to see if you feel that is right. I would say that council directs staff that they approve the repairs to the ice surface at the Paul J. Akbassi Community Center be scheduled to begin April 2022. And that council approves staff to bring a funding proposal, including debenturing options, to proceed with with a funding proposal, including debenturing options, community engagement, and fundraising goals. And that staff proceed with engaging an engineer for consideration to proceed with the drafting replacement of the ice surface. So if I heard what council is saying is you are committed that the repair shall begin April 2022, that staff need to prepare for November a funding proposal, which includes debenturing, ways that we could have community engagement and fundraising, and to proceed with engaging an engineer to ensure that we can go out to tender. Is that what I'm hearing?
And also, I think the investigation into the surplus lands is part of that.
So that would be part of that funding proposal.
Okay, all right. Mayor Love?
Yeah, I think that this recommendation needs to, in its entirety, go forward, because if we don't have someone writing that tender and getting it out very promptly, we are not going to get competitive pricing for this point in time. So yes, absolutely, we need an engineer to write that tender, and they may, in that process, want to come back to council and get some firm answers on, yes, this is included, no, this is not included in the project. And I think that might clarify the question of what our anticipation is in terms of the amount of money in total that we're looking at. And certainly they could give us some sense of that in confidence, what they would anticipate this project would cost. So I think it's super important that we get that tender, that process of finding someone to write the tender and the tender beginning to be written done ASAP, because time is moving fast.
I agree completely. Mayor or Councillor Paplinski?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I think I would support that resolution. I think what it does, it shows to the community and the public that we're willing to do something. We want their help and moving forward. And the work is going to start now, but let's get at it and do it. But I think it would be a real positive message to the public.
Okay, I'm prepared to move that resolution. Could I get a seconder, please? Okay, seconded by Councillor Schulis. All those in favor? Carried. Sue?
Can I just read, I just change a couple of things around to ensure that the mover and the seconder are aware as to how it will appear in writing.
Okay.
That council directs staff that the repairs to the ice surface at the Paul J. Akbassi Community Center be scheduled to begin April 2022. And that council approves staff bring a funding proposal, including debenturing options, in parentheses, I have surplus lands, community engagement, and fundraising goals for consideration. And that council directs staff to proceed with the drafting of a tender for the replacement of the ice surface in 2022 by retaining an engineer.
I think that sounds good.
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Mayor Love?
I'm good with the resolution. I just note to council that with the question of lame duck looming as of August of next year, it will be super important that we get this tender, this tender document completed, that we've agreed upon the work, and that we have a clear understanding of what we anticipate the budget will be. Because in the process of approving our budget, which we are perfectly able to do as a council before the nomination period, we will be setting in place the expectation for expenditure. And those expenditures can continue regardless of whether this council finds himself in lame duck or not. It would be the unanticipated expenditures, any that would occur after August 19th, that could potentially be an issue. Council can, prior to August 19th, also consider a delegation of authority to the CAO to cover a fixed amount that we would determine in terms of additional expenditures. That could then also assist with this project. But it is a challenge, certainly, to be doing a project like this in an election year when we know that always as you're doing something where you're renovating something that is a little mature, you can find new and unfortunate things that do also have to be fixed at the same time. So I think that's why it's so critical we get that tender document done. We get a good firm idea of what this project is likely to cost so that we're budgeting appropriately, and we're doing everything we can to ensure that regardless of it being an election year next year, the project can continue. Thank you.
Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to mention that I know part of this whole discussion is part of it will be on the 20th of the month. It's a special meeting dealing with the surplus property. I just want to bring to your attention that I'll be having eye surgery on that day and it will not be available. So at any time after that, I can make sure that I'm there pretty much. So if that could be rescheduled, I'd appreciate it very much. I'd like to be part of that discussion. Thank you.
All right. So we'll move on with the report then. So the next item is the Rca TV announcement.
Yes, so a couple of things. So I did receive, and I provided council, and it's in the package, that Rca TV submitted a Trillium application, and they included all of the trails within Renfrew County that would be included in receiving some funding and or work done to it and enhancements done to it. I've included that for council's information. Also, I included that we had received, I'd received some telephone calls and an in-office visit by some users of the CN Trail. And I included in the package my email to Rca TV as well as their reply. Most of what I sent to them, they were not aware of, so they are willing to look into that. But what I'm saying to council is that after having talked to the Sergeant Pat DeSeverio, he does agree that there is clarification in the wording in our MOU that may be required. Even though at the time the question was asked of council, and council was assured that residents using the CN Trail to go fishing or access or to cross, that our residents would not require a trail permit. That language is silent in the MOU. So staff may be coming back with asking that be changed to include something that states that it would be up to the owner to show proof of residency. So if you show your driver's license and you're a resident of Madawaska Valley, then it should not warrant that you have a permit to be on CN Trail. Doesn't mean that if they're going out on the rest of the ATV trails, they don't need a permit, but to be on our municipally owned trail, that proof of residency would be all that's needed. So I did send that to Rca TV. And as you can see in the reply that we got, they were not aware that it was not our local OPP that did any of the stopping of the complaints that I received. It was the OPP SAVE team, and the SAVE team stands for Snowmobile, ATV, and Vessel Enforcement. And our local OPP and the Rca TV were not aware that they were on our trail. So they're looking into that as well. So just wanted to keep council apprised, just in the event that you get some telephone calls, and to expect that I probably will be bringing back the memorandum of understanding, and we'll take the time to look at the snowmobile one at the same time, because now we're going into the winter season to ensure that there's clarity, if there's any clarity needing in that MOU as well.
Okay. Any questions, comments on that? Okay, if not, the last item is new positions. And it's just that there's a new full-time non-union facilities and parks attendant position will be advertised internally for 1 week, externally for 2 weeks. And that was the only thing. I don't think.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is will be advertised. Yes. And
all right,
then the next. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I wasn't sure if you want me to proceed with the recreation update as well.
Yes, because this was just for information. Yeah.
So I included, just for council information, just some of the activities and some of the background information as to some of the activities that has happened in August and September. If you had any questions, I can answer those. I did want to highlight one of the other new initiative we received a lot of compliments on in the last week. The Flowers for Seniors project was organized by Jenna Stamplikoski, where she picked flowers and coordinated volunteers throughout the summer to make flower arrangements. And that grew into a sponsorship from the municipality using part of our new initiative fund. And there was 150 arrangements that were made and delivered personally through the summer. So what we did with the fund is dedicated, it was an extension of that program, and they held at the Opeongo Seniors Building a fall centerpiece workshop for seniors, where they made their own fall arrangements with Church Street Flowers providing the workshop and some discounts on the supplies that were needed. So basically their mandate and why we supported it as a new initiative was to let seniors know that they're important to our community. It was very well received. I see that Gwen posted on our social media some of the final products, and it was followed by a lot of very positive comments. Also included in the background information, I did ask Lauren Musklow, who was one of our swim program organizers, just to give us an update as to their thoughts as to how the swim program went. And so on page 81 is some suggestions and some recommendations. And it stated just maybe some recommendations for the program moving forward next year, for some consideration on capping certain amounts because one beach was busier than the other beach. One location, sorry, was busier than the other location. And it also suggested that possibly instead of having 2 sessions at the Lakeshore Beach, that we would consider having 1 session at Wadsworth and 1 session at Lakeshore, as well as continuing the session at the Commermere boat launch. It said that it went very well. So if you had any questions on that, I would, I'm welcome to answer that. But I did want to highlight as well that another new initiative, and it was some participation funding that the previous Recreation Community Development Coordinator was successful in retaining, allowed for a 3-week sports camp. It was filled as soon as it was advertised. Very good comments from the public, the users, and the parents. And I do have to really congratulate Jack Poplinski and Sam Poplinski. They were the students that ran the program. They worked well together independently, had a very good relationship with the students as well as the parents. The program was at capacity, was very well received, and the students showed great leadership in that program. And certainly I would be recommending that this is a program that we plan to apply for funding from as well. And I think it was a great addition to this COVID year where everyone was looking to have their children do something. And unless there is anything else, I did include the Cumbermere Recreation minutes. So they have met twice in the recent month and a half. They did include, and I do note that these are their draft minutes, so they may not have been approved by committee for, corrections and or clarification. But these are the draft minutes. And from that, I do have a council recommendation, as we like to approve the council and committee volunteers by resolution, just for insurance purposes, and to let council know who sits on the council and committee groups. So I do have a recommendation, if I may, through the chair, that council approves the recommendation from the Cumbermere Recreation Committee to add Shelley Belisle and Stacy Miller as new members of the committee, and acknowledge the resignation of Bev Stevenson from the Cumbermere Recreation Committee. I think you're muted, Councillor Wilmer.
Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Mayor Love. All those in favor? Carried. All right, and we also do have the report from, again, just for information, from Alan Trubinsky, which basically lists all the work that's been done at the Akbassi Community Center, the train station, Lakeshore Tennis Courts, the Cumbermere Outdoor Rink, and through the summer. So it's just an update on what he and staff have been doing. So it's a good report. Does anyone have any other questions? Sorry, Councillor Schulis.
Yeah, just for the fun of it, I just want everybody to know it's not my dog.
Okay, and my only other comment, Sue, was the report from Lauren is good information. I think most of the ideas are positive and worth thinking about. So really want to ensure that this gets carried forward to the new our new recreation coordinator, and so the information is there when this staff start next summer to consider.
Yes, I've through the chair, I did scan the report, and I've added it in the recreation file under swimming program, as well as the reports that I'm bringing to council in the interim. So they also have been shared on, they've been saved on the M drive for the recreation department.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there are no other comments, we have no correspondence and information, and no unfinished business that I'm aware of. So I'll hand the chair back to Mayor Love.
Thank you, Chair Wilmer. Got your name right. We're having one of those days, aren't we? All right, so Council, we have no planning matters that are on the agenda. Sue, was there anything that came up at the last minute under planning matters?
No, there isn't. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to finance and administration. We have a municipal report. It is the statement of revenues and expenditures for September 2021. As you know, our treasurer is away. So if council members could please, if you have a question on the statement of revenue and expenditures, please provide your questions to Amanda so that she can get answers for you. Is there anything on the statement of revenue and expenditures that any members feel we need to discuss? Councillor Poplinski.
Thank you, Mayor Love. I think what the fact that the treasurer is away today, I think, so I do have some questions, but I will reserve them until I can have some contact with her. But one of the things I wanted to do is to, and I'm sure every other member of council has gone through this, the one thing that jumps right out at us and is the fact that the cost of our group benefits are just, well, here we are, we still got 3 more months to go. We've already, in some cases, we're over 100%, 100 and some percent over. I really begs the question: are we going to look into this again? Just want to give a little bit of a heads up because I am definitely going to do it, and I was very concerned last year and the year before when I saw the cost going up like 20% a year, and I will have a conversation with the treasurer. And hopefully see if we can get a handle on it, because the new year will be coming very quickly, and we just cannot ignore this as we're looking to find money for projects like the arena and so on. This is an area where we may have to look at some other expenses and various things questions I've got. So with permission, I'd like to speak to the treasurer about that. And we may have to discuss it in another upcoming meeting.
Sue?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. And also just from the last year, if you recall, we had engaged Templeman to see, because I think part of our issues were dealing with the contracts, and the contract for the union is coming up in the next year. We had reached out, so we do have some further information so that we can consider doing some comparison, if you recall, to the county of Renfrew as well. So we had started getting some comparisons from other municipalities, but as well into the type, I think some staff member or council members had asked about what type of programs or coverage through the, I forget what it's called, forgive me, Councilor Polinsky, you know the terms, I don't, into like the group buying.
Yes.
So we have been in
Association.
so we have had those discussions, and some of our information from last year was sent, I forget her name, I believe it was Debbie Gervais, so that they have some of our is it cost, I forget the terminology, but they have our experience, I guess that's it.
Yes.
Our municipal experience from last year. So we have done that at the last term. So yes, and I do agree, before you know it, it's Christmas and it's upon us again. So I will talk to Amanda, and we'll include you in those discussions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sue. And could we also just do a bit of investigation into LAS, because they do offer group benefits to municipalities?
Yes, we have had a few webinars with LAS as well.
Okay. All right. So hopefully if we can get on top of that fairly early on, we'll see if there is anything that can be done about those costs. Okay, thank you. And as I said, any other questions a member of council has on the statement of revenue and expenses, if they could just please forward those questions to our treasurer, and when Amanda gets back, I'm sure she will get you answers. We'll move on to correspondence and information. Our first item is a resolution from Kingsville dated October 1st, 2021, regarding Kingsville Council support of Save Eye Care in Ontario. Does council have some interest in supporting this resolution? Councillor Poplinsky.
Yes, Mayor Love, I would certainly support it. I think if anybody that has gone recently to have their eyes tested, find out now people in certain age groups are going to have to pay for those things. I'm sure if you go tomorrow, you probably get a sex change operation, but I'm more concerned about having my eyes covered. Thank you.
Yes, certainly the job action by optometrists has begun, and if your eye exam was normally covered by OHIP, you actually can't even book an appointment. They won't take an appointment. Even if you're willing to pay for it, they won't.
Yeah.
If you would have been covered by OHIP. So this is a huge concern for young children and for seniors. Councillor Wilmer, I saw your hand up.
I was just going to say that I fully support this too.
So could I then get this to be moved by Councillor Poplinsky?
Yes, please.
Seconded by Councillor Wilmer, that we send a letter of support for this resolution. Oh, and there is Councillor Schulist. Have you been able to hear, sir, what we've been talking about? You're good? Okay.
Absolutely. I just sort of mute to stop the video just to keep the power going here. So no, I've heard everything so far. Okay, thank you.
Okay, wanted to make sure because I know Councillor Bromwich is actually away right now. All right, so if there's no further discussion, then all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, our next item is a resolution from Tay Valley Township dated August 27th, 2021 regarding lottery licensing to assist small organizations. Does council have any interest in supporting this resolution?
Yes.
Councillor Poplinski, did you wish to move
That
that?
is, yes, I would certainly support it. I think we need every little means we can have right now. There are many restrictions when it comes to fundraising, so anything would help. So I would support it.
Okay, could I get, so moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer, that we send a letter of support for this resolution. Any discussion by council? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the next item is a resolution from Northumberland County dated July 6, 2021 regarding Provincial Offences Act. Now, council, I would be a little more inclined to support this if it was coming from the county of Renfrew, because I'm really honestly, I will freely admit to you, I'm not sure how this would impact Provincial Offences Court in our area, and the Provincial Offences Court is actually in the county building, and so I don't know. I think I would prefer, from my perspective, that we just accept this as information because it's a little more.
I agree.
It's beyond what my knowledge is to know if we should be supporting this or not. Sue?
I can forward it to the CAO of the county just to see if they've received it, and maybe I can get a little bit more clarification as well.
I think that would be great, because if it is something that the county would support because they do handle this area of concern, then I'd be much more comfortable. But I honestly can't say that I have a clear understanding based on having read the material as to what it is that they're asking for. So if we could just do that, and we'll see if something comes back from the county of Renfrew. If they come back with yes, they think it is something good to support, then please bring it back to council. All right, and the final one is a resolution from the town of Pryor dated August 27th, 2021 regarding funding for maintenance and preservation and repairs of abandoned cemeteries. Now, I put this, I actually added this to the agenda. It came to the Roma board. There was some discussion at the board about this. This is something that is happening to small rural municipalities. Churches in rural communities are closing, and cemeteries are devolving onto the municipality, typically with no funds attached. So the responsibility is for maintenance and repair of these cemeteries is actually becoming a municipal responsibility. And that includes grounds upkeep, monument repairs. So this could get fairly expensive over time. So that's why I thought it would be good for our council to support this resolution to ensure that the Roma board gets a clear sense that there are more than a few municipalities out there that are experiencing this concern. And as council is aware, we do actually have responsibility for a cemetery in Madawaska Valley, and we don't know, there's the potential this could happen. There could be additional cemeteries downloaded onto the municipality. Councillor Wilmer.
No, I was just going to say I agree. I think this is becoming a problem across Ontario as churches close, and I would fully support this one too.
Would you move it then?
Yes, I would.
Okay, moved by Councillor Wilmer. Could I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any discussion on the resolution of support? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. All right, any unfinished business, Sue? You're muted.
Sorry, no,
There we go.
at this time I do not. Thank you.
Okay, did I miss something in planning? Was there a matter you wanted to speak to about a sea container? Was that going to happen at this meeting? I'm sorry.
Yes, actually, I could bring it up at this point. So as you know, we are in the midst of doing some reconstruction in the building with the new position of the full-time payroll clerk and having our accounting clerk come back to work, having to find space for the municipal compliance officer, and trying to streamline that departments are better placed to work within the department so there's a better flow. So there's been discussion at the staff meetings that all of finance would be upstairs, that previously council had approved that the council chambers would be coming right off of the stairs. So my office wall would be tore down, and that would be a bigger chambers. We would do different rooms at another office at the back. So trying to work with the space, trying to work with the logistics that right now, even though we have retained some contractors, COVID and timelines, nothing has really started yet, but we need to still continue to do business. As was expressed about 3 years ago, records management and storage and archiving has become a big issue, storage as well. So council previously had looked at the feasibility of building something onto the back of the North Hall, being 3 sections, one for recreation, one for fire, one for admin. The cost was felt that it was exuberant. It exceeded $200,000 for that storage. So in having some discussions, staff is, it was suggested that when you've come to our office, our big storage room downstairs is the size of our planning manager's office, but it's downstairs. It would make more flow and more sense having the planning manager downstairs with the roads department, with bylaw, as well as with the compliance officer. Somebody goes downstairs to speak to the building department. They also speak to the planner, and they can stop to speak to the operations manager as it pertains to an entrance, for example. So having talked with staff, the planning manager felt that if the office downstairs, the records management, where we're presently storing, that is the same size as the existing office upstairs. At the back, because of the way that that office is built, there are 2 separate doors into that office. It would be easier to build a wall in the middle of that office, and it still leaves 2 fairly big offices for the clerk and the deputy clerk. In order to do that, we need to do it quickly, and we need to find a solution to our storage issue. So some brainstorming with staff. We wanted to ask council permission to seek a temporary permission to have a sea container, an 8x20 that would be placed here beside the office. It would be a insulated sea container that after it's, so then we would move it to and everything is depending on something else. So as you recall, the surplus, the building condition assessment, there you have a meeting coming up. We have been trying to find a use for the Combermere Seniors Hall. All of the issues and the cost to the Seniors Hall to bring it up to code as it pertains to accessibility and whatnot, so that we, for example, could have used it for the food bank, was because of the use. If we were to propose to use the Combermere Seniors Hall for storage of all municipal records, including the library archives, municipal records here, fire department, and anything of that nature, we could, it lowers the cost by about 2/3 because of the use. We don't have the accessibility issue. We still have to address the beam and the posts, and possibly Andy would be the one to speak to that, not me. But it was felt that if we could right now and purchase instead of leasing an 8x20 sea container, Andy got a price this morning, and it would be approximately $4,500 delivered. We could put all of the files in there, and then once the building condition assessment has been looked over and it's agreed to a cost to repair the seniors community hall in Combermere, that we would have that sea container picked up, brought over there, so then everything would be there ready to be put in a temperature controlled building. We would propose that we would not need water. That way it reduces the risk of, having pipes bust or whatnot. And that would be municipal records storage for that building. The roads and recreation department, I say recreation because of recreational equipment that the roads uses, such as, the lawnmowers, the picnic tables and whatnot. This then could be delivered to the public works yard, and we would have to rezone to allow the sea container to be there. So staff was looking at this as an option to address the need immediately to be able to have an office downstairs. And so that we can, upon the contractor being available, could move forward with the change to the work that is needed to do the council chambers, and that in the interim, we can then continue to work in the offices upstairs.
Okay, thanks, Sue. So what you would be looking for would be a recommendation to purchase the sea container and begin the process of moving the records into it and moving offices around in the municipal office.
Yes, and I see that Silas is on the call as well, and I'm not sure he may be able to comment more on the zoning that would be required for that, but we can apply for a temporary placement of the sea container. And the reason we thought it would be better to leave it here is it would be plowed. Because we plow that yard beside the municipal office, it would be plowed so that if we were able to move it, even if there was snow, we would still be able to have the sea container picked up, brought to Cumbermere, so that we can then put the files in there. And like I say, this is all it came up at Monday's meeting. We're still trying to find solutions. We had looked at some of our existing buildings to see if there were other areas that we could use, and we are at a loss, and we are hostage to a room full of boxes that we must keep.
We must keep, but we don't necessarily need on hand every day.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So part of this council is to address the very tight quarters we have in our municipal office, staying within the footprint. But as you know, as we hire a compliance officer, anything like that we've done in the last little while and are about to implement, it means that space is tighter and tighter and tighter. And so I think that the staff has got a fairly logical solution, being that the same amount of space is directly below the planning office, and getting planning, building, the planning admin assistant all on the same level. Well, while our staff will probably not be as well exercised as they are currently, coming up and down the stairs on a regular basis, it does make sense that there would be better flow in that department. So, this is something that I think we can move on before the snow flies to accommodate the staff that we are about to have, that we do need to have office space for. And it can't continue to be someone stuffed into the council chambers. That's just not going to work, especially with compliance. That will require some sort of ability to meet in an office with confidentiality. Sue?
I wanted to add as well, as part of those staff discussions at the last meeting, as we are hiring a new recreation community coordinator, it had been discussed before that position could work at the arena as well. So there has been room made there for that consideration. So that frees another office downstairs as well.
Right. And that also gives them a good focus as well. They're in an arena that we do want them to be able to rent. Councillor Wilmer, I noticed your hand up.
No, I was just going to ask Sue if any discussion had been had exactly on that, because I had heard that it was possible the recreation coordinator could move to the arena. I was just wondering if that was part of the discussion. So good, thank you.
Sue.
Some of the positives of doing that as staff was discussing was, when the managers are on the ice or in the back in the compressor room, the arena can always stay open between those hours that you have a rec coordinator there to answer. And some of the payments can happen right there as opposed to having to invoice and then come in. We do have, if you recall at the last meeting, we advised council that the debit machine that was at the Paul J. Akbassi Community Center was sent to the Barclay landfill site, and it was successful. So we're going to keep the debit machine there, and we were bringing in another debit machine for the Paul J. Akbassi Community Center. So that would find some more efficiencies as well, that staff doesn't have to, write out a cost and do up an invoice, and they have to come to the office to pay. If there's a debit machine there and you have a rec coordinator there, they just take the payment right away if it happens to be during the office hours. So just seemed like it would save, and even the phone calls, a lot of them could be redirected to the actual landline as opposed to being directed to the manager's cell phones all the time.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions from council? Okay, Sue, do you have a recommendation?
I can make one up.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That council approve the purchase of an 8x20 sea container at a cost of $4,500 to be placed temporarily adjacent to the municipal office for the purpose of
Record storage.
record storage.
Temporary record storage, I think we
Yes.
better say, because this is very much temporary.
Yes.
Okay. So council, you've heard the recommendation. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Schulis, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any discussion on the recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. So that concludes our standing committee part of the meeting, and we would now return to the regular council meeting. Council, because our in-camera session is timed at 1 o'clock, I'd like to get the confirmation of the minutes done, and then we'll take a lunch break until 1. So if we could move to the confirmation of the minutes of the public meeting minutes of September 21st, 2021. I have a recommendation that the public meeting minutes for Tuesday, September 21st, 2021 be approved as presented. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulis. Any errors or omissions on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Then we have the regular council meeting minutes of September 21st, 2021. The recommendation is that the regular council meeting minutes for Tuesday, September 21st, 2021 be approved as presented. Could I get a mover? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Poplinski. Any errors or omissions on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? From anyone? Okay. I wonder if I could complete bylaws. Let me give a go at completing bylaws, and then we'll take lunch, because I'm hoping to be at the in-camera session when we come back at 1. Okay, bylaws. Bylaw 2021-98 regarding a development agreement for Lot 6, Plan 432, Geographic Township of Sherwood, Township of Madawaska Valley, County of Renfrew. Condition of rezoning, Susan Jane Behan, BEA-2021-11. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-98, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into and execution of a development agreement between Susan Jane Behan and the Township of Madawaska Valley, be given first and second reading this 5th day of October 2021. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulis. Any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-98 be given third and final reading this 5th day of October 2021. Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. Any final discussion on this bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Bylaw 2021-99 regarding authorizing the entering into and execution of a consulting agreement for an operational service delivery review with Municipal Government Wayfinders Limited. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-99, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into and the execution of a consulting agreement with Municipal Government Wayfinders Limited and the Corporation of the Township of Madawaska Valley, be given first and second reading this 5th day of October 2021. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The recommendation is that bylaw 2021-99 be given third and final reading this 5th day of October 2021. Moved by Councillor Wilmer, seconded by Councillor Schulist. Any final discussion on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. I love the little time delay that I get with Councillor Schulist because of his internet.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at the in-camera session, and Gwen, do you want me to take us in camera and then we'll take our break? Oh, Sue? Sorry.
Yes, sorry, if I may, just wanted to add, following that last bylaw, that an email was sent late last night to every council member advising that a representative from Municipal Government Wayfinders will be contacting council members individually to schedule in an interview, and that's part of the operational service delivery review. And I did include kind of like the milestones and some of the documents they'd be looking at, so that council had an idea as to the process. So,
okay, thank
thank
you.
you.
And I just heard from Gwen, and yes, we will go in camera and then we will take our lunch break. So we have an in-camera session. The recommendation is that the meeting enters in-camera session to discuss matters pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, labor relations or employee negotiations, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organizations. Ontario Municipal Act 2001, Chapter 25, Sections 239, 2B, D, F, and I. Number 1 will be the regular council meeting minutes in camera of September 21st, 2021. Number 2 will be a human resources update. Number 3 will be Wishart Law Firm update, recourt file number CV-21-00000002-0000. Could I get a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Poplinski, seconded by Councillor Schulist. All those in favor? And that's carried. We are in camera. Gwen, could you let us know when we're no longer live streaming?